Welcome. This is our EFD 620 Project 3 to the resources. We had Chapter 8, writing essay questions. Group members include myself, Evan Hostetler.
I am Marlene Gregory Freeman.
And I am Adam Gooseby.
And I'm Jennifer Stevens. Okay, so to start out our session today, we're going to go over our agenda and our norms. And so as you see, we're going to be responsible for our own learning, be actively present, be considerate of everyone's point of view, listen attentively as others speak, and respect time by staying on task and topic.
Okay, for our icebreaker, we are going to think, write, and pass. When you came in, you were given a folder. You have materials in that folder, which include notebook paper, and in your folder, you will see a piece of notebook paper with your name and a prompt at the top. You will also need a pencil. I'm going to give you some time to get in groups. Preferably, I need 4 teachers, but if we need to make a group of 3, that would be the minimum, and the maximum would be 5. The time is 10 minutes for this, or maybe just a little bit more. And when I talk a little bit more about the activity, you'll see why I have 2-minute intervals up on the presentation. You're going to have 2 minutes to write on each paper, and when the time is up, you'll pass your paper to the member of the group to your right. That means that you will think about the prompt, you'll read it, you'll write, and you'll pass, but then you'll read what the person in front of you wrote until each group member has their original paper. So again, you will have written on everyone's paper in your group. And then in the end, a volunteer from each group shares one of the narratives. Please continue. And as you can see, your prompt says, I remember being a student and answering essay questions one time, and you may not remember that time. So maybe you can think of a student that has struggled with an essay question, but it will start out possibly as real, a personal narrative, and they will all go into a fictitious essay because we are writing on each other's paper. I think we will have fun with it. Okay, you may continue on.
Okay, let's dig in a little bit deeper. What is the essay question? An essay item is one for which students supply rather than select a correct answer, such as multiple choice. The students must write a response to a question for which no single reply pattern of responses can be cited as correct, to the exclusion of all other answers. The accuracy and quality of students' responses can often be graded only by a person skilled and informed in the subject area of the essay items. To continue, essay questions should measure complex cognitive skills or processes by requiring students to organize, analyze, integrate, and synthesize knowledge, use information to solve or be original and innovative in problem solving, and they can be extended or restricted responses.
All right, so we have pros and cons of essay questions here. Go ahead. And some pros that we have here, it's effective method of testing a higher depth of knowledge. If an essay question is written well and constructed well, students can't just repeat information back to you. It requires them to come up with some kind of original thought. It's very easy for a teacher to construct these. Now, I've seen poorly written questions and well-written questions, and we'll get into those a little later. Multiple academic disciplines can be covered. For example, I'm a classroom science teacher, and I've given essay questions in my own class that require students not only to give me scientific information, but it also tests their ELA ability as well. And guessing is never an option with an essay question, so they can't just get lucky and pick B and then score high on the test. Cons to an essay question, they're very tedious to grade. It takes a lot of time on the teacher's end. There's some subjectivity there. Also, tester fatigue could set in, especially if it's towards the end of a test. They're not going to have enough energy or mental capacity at that point to completely carry on their instructional knowledge through to an essay. And longer essays tend to score higher than shorter ones. Reason being that whoever's scoring it gets, to be really honest, tired of grading it. And they'll just start scoring higher because there's more information there and they assume that someone has tested correctly. All right, go on to the next slide, please. And there's some research that we found a little bit dealing with essay questions. several different researchers. Here's three that we've highlighted. Essay questions do allow students to express their knowledge in their own words and express higher order thinking. And that was from a study done in 2006. And in 1998, so even before that, in a virtual delivery. So this is early on into virtual instruction, being in the late 90s. Essays tend to be the best way to prove mastery. However, in a virtual delivery, they're difficult to score equitably. And then in 2008, essays tend to have major variations in scoring. If you gave the same essay question to two different people to score it, you would get two different scores. Or if you gave it to 5 people, you get 5 different scores. So that's where the subjectivity comes in. So go ahead.
All right, now we're going to talk about how to write essay questions. There are several components here, but on this slide, you only see the first component to think about when writing essay questions, which is to plan for desired mental processes. You need to have clearly in mind what mental processes you want the student to use before you start to write the question. And we are all familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. It's often presented as a pyramid, but on this chart that you see in the middle, it is presented as a stair step with the lowest level of cognitive thinking to the highest level. And then it corresponds with most test questions are written at the lowest level and the least common are written at the highest level. However, essay questions should be used. I think Evan and Adam pointed it out that you're evaluating higher order thinking skills. So probably matching or multiple choice would work better for those lower couple of steps. And then using essay questions for application analysis and so on would be best for your essay questions. And I provided in your folder the chart that you see on the right with the green writing. It inverts and starts with the lowest level, but it explains what the student must do to show that level of knowledge. And then it gives some good keywords and verbs to use when writing test questions. So you have that resource in your folder. Next slide, please. The other components to think about when you write a question is to make sure you clearly define the task. The student needs to know what he or she is doing. Avoid who, what, when, and list questions. Those are better served with a different type of questions. Ask for evidence. We all know that text-dependent writing is huge in our preparation and with our Common Core. For state testing, with our resources in Common Core and language arts, we are always citing the evidence. So, but if you do a different type of essay question, let's say a student's stating a claim and picking a side, they also need evidence, especially with controversial topics. Avoid the use of optional questions. If you have 4 of 7 to pick from, or 2 out of 3, 1 out of 3, what happens is you're decreasing the test validity and your basis for comparison among students, and they're harder to grade. Specify the criteria and the limits. If you do not want a 2-page essay answer, make sure if you say write a paragraph or write a 3-paragraph essay, whatever your limits are. Evaluate if essay questions are best to fit what you're asking for. The item that you write must match the objective that you're covering. And it's a good idea, especially when you write an essay question you're using for the first time, is to preview it by rereading it several times, predict how you think the students will answer, model it by writing the answer yourself. You're modeling it for yourself, possibly ask a colleague to look at the question, and then review what happened when the students took the test. Did they ask a lot of questions about it? Were they confused about it? And then look at their answers and see if they do what they generally do when for their performances on tests. Right, thank you. You may go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you go back one? Thank you. I had written an example of a poor question. This poor question reads, write an essay that shows you understand how point of view has an impact in both the passage and the poem. Well, showing understanding a point of view is not specific enough. A better question, and this comes from a Park exemplar, is where the red fern grows and the lighthouse lamp are written from different points of view. Write an essay analyzing the impact of point of view on events in the passage from where the red fern grows and the impact of point of view from the events in the poem, The Lighthouse Lamp. Use specific examples from both texts to support your answer. So then you get your citing of evidence for each. They know that they're writing how the point of view affected each, and it's just a clearer, better question. All right, now next slide.
All right, so we're going to look at how we score essay questions, kind of jumping off of what Marlene just said. So go ahead. The hardest thing to kind of deal with is it's hard to score an essay that's not well written. And you can kind of see in her example that she just gave with the bad essay question, there's not a whole lot of criteria to kind of look for. Those kids could go every possible direction before they come to a conclusive answer. It's much easier to grade an essay question A that's well written, and B that you have a rubric on. Prepare a rubric or some kind of scoring theme that would outline an acceptable response. You want your criteria to be specific enough, but not too specific as to not allow a little bit of creativity on the student's end. Be sure to set a limit on response lead. That's something that Marlene had even mentioned. And then be sure to score the mechanics as well as the content. So don't just score, say if you have a question about the red fern grows, if the kids write a really, really poorly written essay with no sentence structure and terrible syntax and grammar, that needs to be scored as well. That's kind of one of the main components of an essay question. So just make sure you have a good rubric and make sure it's very specific, but not too specific.
So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move into the adjoining classroom, and we're going to do a speed dating activity. So at the top of the agenda that you were handed out today, you'll see a number 1 or a number 2. When we go next door, you're going to divide into sections. So all of the 1s will sit at a yellow dot and all of the 2s will sit at a blue dot. I'm so sorry for that typo. So when we tell you to go, you have a card placed in the middle of the table. You're going to flip that card over, and each pair will be given 60 seconds to discuss the prompt. You're going to either discuss scoring an essay question, looking at an existing essay question and seeing how you can make it better, or decide if it needs to be adjusted in any way, and actually answering some essay questions on the paper provided just to get some practice with what we're talking about. So when we ding the little bell, each group is going to get up and move one place to his or her right. That way each group will have a new partner for each station. And when you get back to where you begin, your group is going to be given some time. You're going to make a presentation to the rest of us talking about your prompt that you were given and what you would do with it to make it a stronger question, or how would you improve it, or how you would have scored it. And then we're going to take these, we're going to put all this information together, and we'll push it back out to you later so that you'll have it as a resource to work with throughout the year. Okay. So if you know me, you all have quotes. And so one of my favorites is, it's not the answer that enlightens, but the question. So I know a lot of people don't like to ask questions in front of groups, but this is your time. If you have questions about anything that we've said, if there's something that's not made clear, please feel free to reach out to us, let us know. And if you don't want to ask us in front of everybody, you can always email us or catch us after the session. But we'll give you some time here for question and answer. And then when that time is over, we move on to Evan and feedback.
Thank you for your time, attention, and participation. Please scan the QR code and provide feedback for this session.